Hey everyone, Matt Pisarcik with RazorEmporium.com. Today with a video series from the Razor Archive collection, we're going to be talking about some famous razor models and going through each one individually. Starting, of course, in chronological order with the Gillette Double Ring old type safety razor. Now, if you've gotten into double edge shaving and you've gotten into Gillette razors, you have to have heard of the grandfather of them all, the very, very first Gillette razor, the Double Ring razor. Now, this is a razor from the old type era, and old type just means kind of the more or less the patent date and the kind of features that were involved with the series. This is going to be noted by the curved guard design, curved guard, stabilizer pins, sometimes called saber teeth or some kind of blade teeth, but more or less stabilizer pins, and the comb design. So the actual guard itself is a comb guard. All these three features put together will denote an old type razor. The very first razors introduced from Gillette came out in 1903, only lasted to about 1905. Now this razor series was unique, not only because it's the first from Gillette, but because they were still kind of figuring things out. The very first razors were actually issued in a white cardboard box, white pasteboard box in early 1903. They later came out in a lithographed metal tin, which are extremely hard to find, and that was kind of the more commonly known first razor box. And then about a year later, into 1904, they finally came out in these leather cases that are much more common to see. Now these are going to feature different names across the top of where they were located. Now Gillette, of course, was out of Boston. That's where the manufacturing happened. But Gillette had a second division of the company called the Gillette Sales Company, as you'll see here. And they also tied together these different banners, New York, Chicago, Boston. They tied these together with actual advertisement campaigns in the day. So if they put an ad in a newspaper in Boston, they would want to follow up and see how many razors would sell with a Boston name on it. Or if they said, an ad in Chicago, they would have Chicago razors go out. And this was a way of kind of figuring out in Gillette's early days of advertising how and where their advertisings were being the most effective. But on to more about the razors. These guys are going to also be kind of noted as having a handle that's attached to the guard. So you have your cap, your guard, and your handle, and then you have your barrel. And as you screw these things together, you're going to have your three-piece design. One common problem with these razors is going to be cracking, and this is actually an example of a really bad one. This crack has gone almost all the way through the razor handle here. Very, very common to see a little micro crack. This obviously is pretty severe, but another major problem is bent teeth. Guys today are just like guys back in the day. And people drop in their razor, your hands are slippery, and these would fall, and it's very common to see bent teeth. So if you come across a double ring razor, you're first off going to be probably shouting for joy because they're quite collectible and quite rare, but you should also look for these little tiny micro cracks, teeth that are out of alignment or snapped off or broken or whatever. These are all common problems. Now, one thing to note about these razors that we don't even think about today. These were sold for $5 in 1904. In today's dollars, that'd be $135. So quite the investment. And that's why it was not a small feat to own a Gillette razor. It was kind of an exclusive thing. People thought they were, kind of well-to-do if you owned a Gillette razor. But they promised the savings, that you were going to save, $4,000 in today's money a year by switching, because you were no longer paying for a barber. The big thing with Gillette was this is what put the barber shop in your pocket. This is what would free you from the barber habit of having to go and, they ran all sorts of campaigns of how unclean and uncouth and the debacle of having to go to a barber shop and waiting in line for someone to shave you and to not be very enjoyable. And Gillette really did push the shave yourself mentality. That was what all of their advertisements were about, was kind of empowering the individual to learn how to shave, and the value of having these little double-edged blades that you would be able to change out and throw away. And don't forget, this was the invention. People always think that Gillette invented safety razors. Au contraire, that was invented 30 years beforehand in 1875. We covered this in another video about the Camphy Brothers Star, single-edged blades. This is Gillette's invention, the disposable throwaway blade. And I cannot stress enough how much of an invention this was, because up to this point, people had to take care of blades, whether safety razors or straight razors, stropping, honing. In fact, they thought that was such a big deal, they would say no stropping, no honing on their boxes. So another thing that Gillette was always trying to do was present the value. So things like triple silver plated, saying that when that's really just, you have to do 3 different layers just to get up to silver, as we know, but it sounds really fancy. And even the boxes looking like currency. This was kind of also a design that Gillette went with, is to make their razors look like money. Maybe to partly justify the price, $135 for a razor set was a lot of money, but also just to kind of exude quality, exude value, that this was like buying money or saving money. I think it's brilliant. The color scheme worked, and it still looks classic today. But I mean, Gillette, with the double ring razor, Gillette truly did change not just the shaving world, they changed the consumer market altogether. People weren't used to throwing things away. In fact, this first series of razors, Gillette had to include little tiny envelopes to send the razor back, the blades back to Boston to be resharpened, because people didn't want to throw them away. It was only later that people finally caught on that I can throw this piece of metal away. It was a foreign concept in 1904 to throw anything away. So with the disposable blade, also kind of ushered in a new era of disposability in general with all consumer products. So when I say that Gillette changed the way the world works, it really did. These razors today are extremely collectible. The double ring razors in almost any condition are worth something. On a rarity scale, I mean, they made only about 55,000 before they actually started serial numbering, and even after that, only about 400,000 total were even made. So to own one today, 400,000, razors out of the world's population, and how many are even still around? I think it is a rare thing to own. I would say on a rarity scale of 1 to 5, 5 being it belongs in a museum, 1 being you can find it at a thrift store. I would say these are going to be a 4, maybe even a 5, depends on the condition, especially some of these nicer boxes. If you have the original blade banks in them, that say dull and sharp and they're in good condition, definitely on the higher end, the 5 out of 5 for rarity. To have one with not only just this serial number, but then a matching box, because these boxes actually do feature the serial number on the back side, now that's definitely 5 out of 5. And on that note, I don't know if I did mention, the serial numbers can be found by opening up the barrel, and they'll be right here on the barrel, and that will actually tell you the exact number, its serial number in production, and you can reference that number on our website, GilletteDateCodes.com, to figure out exactly when your razor dates from. I think that's all I got here on the Double Ring series. Please like, comment, subscribe. If you have one of these or come across one, let us know, and what number yours is. We want to hear from you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time at Razor Emporium.